All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we are going to completely demystify a pretty esoteric traditional Chinese medicine manual, and we're going to translate it into a rigorously science-backed protocol for stress management and autonomic nervous system regulation. For decades, we've looked at these ancient texts as metaphorical, or maybe even mystical. But what if they're actually highly detailed clinical manuals that were just written in a pre-scientific language? Let's bridge that gap right now using the King Kong Qigong system.
Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with ancient wisdom, modern biology, then move into regulating the nervous system. After that, we'll cover movement for physical recovery, followed by cranial and auditory interventions, and we'll wrap it all up with your daily recovery plan.
Okay, part 1, ancient wisdom, modern biology, translating the esoteric.
So traditional Chinese medicine tells us that Qigong cultivates Qi, which is described as this invisible life energy, right? And Jing, a vital essence stored in the kidneys. Now, obviously, modern science hasn't found a literal glowing energy substance inside us, but, and this is where it gets incredibly cool, when we map these concepts directly to modern biology, increasing Qi perfectly describes optimizing our integrated physiological functions. We're talking about improving breathing efficiency and actively lowering stress hormones. Meridians, well, they map almost flawlessly to our connective fascial networks and major nerve bundles. And that Jing essence, it aligns beautifully with genetic longevity, mitochondrial health, and our body's baseline recovery capacity. It's the same human body, just described with a different vocabulary.
A perfect example of this translation in action is a technique called golden dew. Now, golden dew sounds like some sort of esoteric alchemy, right? But modern science grounds this perfectly as a highly targeted clinical intervention for oral and digestive health. Human saliva is absolutely packed with digestive enzymes and antimicrobial properties. So, by intentionally generating it, swishing it, and swallowing it, you are literally priming your entire digestive tract and actively combating gum disease.
Just look at the specific King Kong washes mouth exercise. The manual tells you to generate saliva and swish it around your mouth exactly 36 times. Basically like you're using mouthwash, before swallowing. This isn't magic. It's a mechanical, easily observable action with a highly direct clinical outcome for your gums and your gut microbiome.
Moving right along to part 2, regulating the nervous system, breath as an intervention.
Now, the breathing instructions in this manual are absolutely crucial because they aren't just random deep breaths. They are highly specific, sequenced intervals designed to actively modulate your stress hormones. Take the King Kong stretches legs movement, for instance. It uses something called a triangle pattern for 24 breaths. That breaks down to 8 slow breaths, 8 strong breaths, and then back to 8 slow breaths. Actually, think about that for a second. This structured respiratory variability is exactly the kind of pacing that modern cardiologists use today to lower blood pressure and increase vagal nerve tone, safely shifting the body entirely out of fight or flight mode.
And it goes even deeper. Adjusting your inhale to exhale ratio directly correlates to measurable cardiovascular outcomes. If you're a patient dealing with high anxiety, you would use what's called a sedating technique. That's a short, sharp inhale followed by a long, drawn-out exhale. Traditionally, the goal of this is to calm the energy, but clinically, a prolonged exhalation physically forces your heart rate to drop by directly signaling the parasympathetic nervous system. On the flip side, tonifying with a long inhale builds cardiovascular endurance, which the ancients called building yin qi. It's all connected.
Let's look at the mechanics of King Kong holds fists. By squeezing your scapulas, your shoulder blades together at chest level and holding that for 24 breaths, you are physically expanding your chest cavity. This maximizes your breathing efficiency. The manual calls this cultivating qi for the heart and lung meridians. But biologically, you are actively correcting modern postural rounding, physically opening the airways, and allowing for much deeper diaphragmatic excursion. You are physically making room for your lungs to work better.
All right. Section 3, Movement for Physical Recovery, Clinical Therapies. So if you're someone really focused on stress management and recovery, the Place Ho exercise is a perfect intervention. You sit with your legs straight, interlace your fingers, inhale as you stretch your palms forward, raise them overhead, flip the palms up, and then exhale as you bring the hands down toward the feet, repeating it 12 times. The traditional text says this builds yin qi, but physically, you are taking your shoulders, your spine, and your hips through a completely fluid, dynamic range of motion while safely decompressing the lower back on that long exhale. It's a phenomenal full-body mobility routine. It gets really fascinating when you contrast two different exercises. Take King Kong Finds Dragon, which focuses on pure spinal flexibility as you lean forward to stretch the hamstrings and lumbar spine. Now compare that to King Kong Stretches Legs. In this one, the manual explicitly asks you to hold angry, glaring eyes. Why on earth would you do that? Well, in traditional Chinese medicine, the liver is directly connected to the eyes and the emotion of anger. Fast forward to today, and modern science knows for a fact that specific facial expressions can actually trigger neurochemical feedback loops in the brain. They were literally mapping somatic emotional release centuries ago.
That brings us to Section 4, Cranial and Auditory Interventions, Vibrational Neurology. Let's talk about using physical vibration to hack the nervous system. The technique called beating the heavenly drum involves covering your ears and firmly flicking your middle fingers against the back of your skull, the occiput. This literally creates a low-frequency vibration that travels right through the skull bone to directly stimulate the cerebral cortex. It wakes the brain up. Contrast that with beating drum, where you strike the abdomen. That mechanical percussion stimulates the digestive organs and drives peripheral blood flow. It's highly targeted percussion therapy, just without the massage gun.
Then there's King Kong Watches Moon. The traditional instruction is to visualize negative qi leaving your eyes. That's a great metaphor for a very real physiological benefit, relieving tension in the visual cortex. Think about it. By holding a 45-degree cervical extension, you are actively reversing that terrible forward head tech-neck posture that dominates our modern lives. This physically opens the front of the neck, it stimulates blood flow, it naturally drains the sinuses, and it relieves mechanical stress directly on the optic nerve.
Finally, Section 5, Your Daily Recovery Plan, a Structured Protocol.
So when should you actually do all this? Well, your autonomic nervous system responds best to this recovery schedule if performed in the morning, ideally in that optimal window between 6 and 7 a.m. And no, that timing is definitely not arbitrary. 6 a.m. aligns perfectly with the natural daily spike in our body's cortisol awakening response. By executing these parasympathetic enhancing movements right as your stress hormones naturally peak, you are basically setting a calm, heavily regulated biological baseline for the rest of your entire day.
Closing out your practice is just as important. The King Kong returns posture ensures your body transitions incredibly smoothly from active neural stimulation back down to a resting state. You generate and swallow that golden dew saliva 3 times to re-engage the digestive tract, and then you just sit in meditation. This final 10-minute block, that is your biological consolidation phase. It's where your heart rate variability normalizes and all those systemic benefits are locked in.
All right, let's pull the whole shebang together. If you're a beginner looking for a simplified daily routine, mastering these 5 basic steps will dramatically improve your measurable cardiovascular and neural outcomes. Here's your condensed clinical protocol. 1. Prepare by generating saliva to prime digestion. 2. Breathe using that respiratory variability to lower your blood pressure. 3. Mobilize your joints with the play-so movement. 4. Stimulate your brain with vibrational cranial tapping. And 5. Close with meditation to consolidate your recovery. Honestly, it is a literal masterclass in human physiology.
I'll leave you with this final thought. We are really just scratching the surface of how these historical frameworks can inform modern health. When we stop dismissing the poetry of the past and we start translating it into the hard science of the present, the possibilities for our own healing and recovery become truly endless. So, what other biological secrets do you think are hiding in plain sight, just waiting for science to decode them?